So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. During tonight's discussion, you'll have a chance to learn about the Knowles Teaching Fellows Program and hear firsthand accounts of how it has positively impacted the teaching practice of 6 Knowles Fellows. Before we get started, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping items. Video and audio are turned off for all participants. As such, I encourage you to use the Q&A box on your screen to ask any questions you might have. All questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end of the panel. My name is Dwayna Suku, and I'm excited to serve as your host. I joined the Knowles Community as part of the 2014 cohort, and now I'm a senior fellow, which means I have successfully completed the 5-year program. I'm a 9th-year math teacher at the NYC Lab School for Collaborative Studies in New York City. In addition to my teaching responsibilities, I serve as the facilitator of the equity team, the co-chair of the leadership team, and I'm a member of the instructional leadership team. I also serve as the advisor of the Black Student Union. I'd also like to introduce my co-presenter, Jeff Rozelle, Vice President of Programs at Knowles. Jeff started his career in education as a science teacher in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he developed a passion for teacher development that continued into his graduate work and ultimately led him to Knowles, which he's been a part of since 2013. Next, I'd like to introduce our panelists. I'm going to spotlight them as I introduce them. So first is Sarah Bada, who is a Knowles Senior Fellow from the 2016 cohort. She is a 6th-year biology teacher at Lawrence Free State High School, a larger public school in Lawrence, Kansas. At Free State, she teaches biology and advanced biology to 9th graders and AP biology to upperclassmen. Sarah serves as the secretary of the Kansas Association of Biology Teachers. Additionally, she serves as the co-sponsor of the garden club at her school. Recently, Sarah was named as the 2021 Outstanding Biology Teacher Awardee for the state of Kansas by the National Association of Biology Teachers. Next, we have John Brown. John is a 2020 Knowles Teaching Fellow. He is a 3rd-year math teacher at Lakeview High School in Chicago, Illinois. This year, he started an initiative with another Knowles Fellow to incorporate the 5 practices for orchestrating productive mathematical discussion into departmental professional learning. He previously served as an 11th grade team co-lead for 2 years. At Math Circles of Chicago, a free math enrichment program for youth across the city, he serves as a program committee member and instructional coach. Next, we have Brianna Clark. Brianna is a Knowles Senior Fellow from the 2016 cohort. She's a 7th-year physics teacher who recently transferred to Park Middle Day School in Oakland, California. For the last 3 years, Brianna has served as the science curriculum lead, facilitating department meetings and fostering collaboration within the science department. Additionally, she is the author of Physics for All and Chemistry for All, self-guided workbooks designed to pair with PhET simulations for high school students. And next we have Destiny. Destiny Cooper is a Knowles Senior Fellow from the 2015 cohort. She's a 7th-year chemistry teacher at Eleanor Roosevelt High School in Greenbelt, Maryland. Destiny is a sponsor of the Women in STEM chapter at her school. Also, she supports early career teachers as a coach in the Knowles Coaching Partnership Program. Next, we have Erica. Erica Mitkiss is a Knowles Senior Fellow from the 2016 cohort. She is a 6th-year biology teacher at the Governor's Academy in Byfield, Massachusetts. Erica coaches the volleyball and skiing teams at her school. Additionally, Erica serves as the director of KELP, the Knowles Experiential Learning Project. And lastly, we have Anthony. Anthony Reed is a 2017 Knowles Teaching Fellow. He's a 5th-year math teacher at Howard High School of Technology in Wilmington, Delaware, where he serves as the senior class advisor and the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator for his school. Since spring 2019, Anthony has served on his district's math council, where he has planned and facilitated district-wide mathematics professional development sessions and helped influence key decision-making regarding math curriculum and instruction. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So to begin, Jeff will give a brief overview of Knowles as well as the Teaching Fellows Program and how to apply.
Thank you, Dwayna. The Knowles Teacher Initiative was established by Harry Knowles and Janet Knowles, in 1999 to increase the number of high quality high school science and mathematics teachers and ultimately improve math and science education in the United States. At Knowles, we believe that teachers can and should be the primary agents of educational improvement, and this belief is woven through all of our programming, including our Teaching Fellows program, which our panelists are going to tell you about tonight. The Knowles Teaching Fellows program was designed specifically to address the challenges faced by new high school math and science teachers. The 5-year program supports them in their efforts to develop teaching expertise and lead from the classroom. Each year, we award approximately 35 fellowships to new math, chemistry, physics, and biology teachers who have outstanding content knowledge, are committed to becoming great teachers, and possess the potential to become the kinds of teacher leaders who make a difference in schools. Knowles Teaching Fellows receive a comprehensive array of benefits that are designed to support new teachers and emerging teacher leaders. We support fellows financially by offering grants to cover expenses associated with purchasing classroom materials and engaging in professional development. Fellows are also able to request funds to develop and execute leadership activities that have an impact beyond their own classrooms. In addition to grants, fellows receive stipends, and these stipends can be used to support fellows financially during the summer months, allowing them to concentrate on their own professional development, prepare for the upcoming year, even just rest in the summer rather than taking on a part-time job during the summer, as many teachers need to do. We do value the expertise and knowledge of skillful teachers, so we support fellows with mentors and coaches. That includes our staff, who have well over 100 years of teaching experience, who view themselves first and foremost as teachers. Our staff regularly check in with fellows, support them to plan and reflect on instruction, talk them through challenging professional dilemmas, and support them through personal challenges. We also support fellows with veteran teachers who we call specialists, who bring with them experience as both teachers and teacher leaders. These specialists join us at meetings that we'll hear about. They support fellows in their inquiry and provide counsel as true master teachers. Ultimately, Knowles Fellows also have a support network now of nearly 450 teachers who are committed to improving mathematics and science education. From in-person conversations that take place at meetings to virtual conversations that take place in our online community, fellows can always reach out to other fellows as part of this national network and receive the support they need. We do invest in bringing fellows together in person 3 times a year, sometimes as an entire community and sometimes just as a cohort. Attendance at Knowles meetings is often cited by fellows as one of the main benefits of the program. I'll tell you a little bit about the application. New math and science teachers do submit an application to apply for a Knowles Teaching Fellowship. 2022 Knowles Teaching Fellows will be selected following a thorough review of all the submitted applications and the completion of an interview process that will begin in January of 2022 and end in May of 2022. All the details about the application can be found on our website, which you see here, knowlesteachers.org/apply. But I'm going to outline some eligibility requirements for the fellowship just sort of straight away. First, applicants must have received a degree, a bachelor's degree, or an equivalent in the content area that they're applying for. That's either math, biology, chemistry, or physics. And they have to have had that degree by September 1st, 2022. Second, applicants must receive a state certification or license to teach math or science in a high school classroom, again, by September 1st, 2022. And third, as I mentioned, this program is for new teachers. So applicants will need to be either first or second year teachers in the fall of 2022 in order to be eligible. We recognize that even with these specific criteria, it's certainly possible you're going to have questions about your unique situation. We want to make sure that you're able to confirm your eligibility before investing the time needed to apply for our fellowship. So if you have any questions regarding eligibility, please send your inquiry to apply@knowlesteachers.org, and we'll be sure to reply quickly and make sure we get in all of your questions answered. Again, there's the website. You can find information at Knowles Teachers, and that's the email again. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dwayna and the panel.
Thank you, Jeff, providing that overview of the fellowship, including the eligibility requirements and the application process. So next, we're going to move on to our panel discussion. As described in the overview, Knowles selects teaching fellows in cohorts. In what ways has your cohort been important to your experience as a fellow? I'm going to direct this question to the three fellows on the panel who are all from the same cohort, Sarah, Brianna, and Erica. Sarah, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I think that within our cohort, one of the things that sticks out to me the most is just having a group of other people who are like in the same exact boat as you, who are beginning teachers going through the similar things as you. And even though our contexts or our backgrounds are different, it's really nice to be able to sit in a room and like describe a classroom problem and like have everyone understand it and not have to like explain or justify yourself to other people. So I would say for me, the moral support and also just like the friendships have been really beneficial. Just having an understanding and supportive group of people there to kind of get you through those first few years. That's been something that I feel like I've benefited from the most.
Thank you. Brianna, do you mind answering the same question?
Sure. I don't feel like I have much more to add than Sarah. I think it's almost like going to a group exercise, like a Zumba class or something. There's something to say about like positive accountability. It just makes the work more fun, even in the hard moments. Like coming to see the same familiar faces kind of just makes you want to do that work. And so you really look forward to in these meetings versus going to a traditional conference where it's, you know, one time only, not having the same thought partners, having the continual same thought partners who know your context, know a little bit about you, even know, you know, your background, you know, getting married, having children over the years, and interacting that way. It's just really nice. You not only get to be professionals, but also remember the humanistic side and see humans at work. And I think in terms of this, of who they select in this cohort, it's those of us who I think are all deeply passionate about the work. And so sometimes it's also nice to remember to be a human with other teachers as well.
Thank you. And Sarah, if you have anything else you'd like to add. Oh, sorry, Erica. Sarah already spoke. Go ahead, Erica.
Okay. I think they said a lot of great things. I think that the other thing I would add that maybe I didn't fully appreciate when I first entered was that it's a 5-year fellowship. And we all just branched out last weekend, which means we completed our 5 years, and we did a lot of reminiscing as part of that. And it was honestly shocking sometimes to remember like where we all started and what we were doing in our first meeting and what our lives were, because so much has changed. And just there's something to be said about being with a group of people for 5 years that you can really build so much trust, so much understanding, just like so much connection. And speaking personally, my graduate degree, my master's degree was a cohort model as well, but it was 10 months. And there are some people from that cohort, my graduate cohort, in our current cohort. And I know them so much better now than I ever did when I was spending every day with them in class. I know them better now, having only seen them in person 3 times a year, because we've been together for so long. We've done so much great work together. We've shared so much together. And it's just really invaluable to have those people who are kind of like that constant force with you that you can count on the whole way through.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. Each year, teaching fellows write grants to access Knowles funding for professional development and classroom materials. Can you tell us about a grant that you submitted and how the benefit you accessed impacted your teaching practice? I'm going to direct this question first to Brianna and then to Erica. So Brianna, would you like to start?
Sure, just to recap, so there's different types of grants, one being materials. So when I started off in a Title I teaching or teaching in a Title I school, having a budget of, I think, $300 for materials clearly wasn't going to cover anything past whiteboard markers and pencils. So I was also a Donors Choose fiend, but what I really appreciated about Knowles over Donors Choose was just the flexibility in being able to write grants for things. So anywhere from Arduinos and projects that were, what was it, probably around $2,000 in my first year. And Donors Choose would have taken, months to get that type of support up. And then on the back end, what I appreciated about the grant writing process in Knowles, it teaches you how to have that clean writing in terms of giving out needs and evaluations, but it doesn't give, it still puts the value on you in your classroom versus Donors Choose has this sort of false sense of empathy / valuing the person, donating, like, here, we'll send you this thank you and make you feel good about yourself. And you don't even know, like, half of those donors, where they're coming from, yada, yada. And struggling to get students to produce thank you notes is a task in and of itself. So that said, the benefit of going through this grant writing process was great in terms of, again, that flexibility and just the range of what you could put into a very large project. It allowed you to kind of think big within your first year. And then on the back end, I was able to use PD grant money both to take friends to conferences who later became Knowles Fellows, which was really nice. So being able to show them the depth of what Knowles could do and being just reinvigorated and re-inspired in the field was really nice. And then that grant writing also allowed me to write my own book. So I wouldn't have had the capacity to reach out to professors and master teachers in order to have them craft and look at my work. I wouldn't have been able to get started with being able to advertise my book at conferences and make a larger impact right now on the larger science community. So I really appreciated that. Again, the flexibility of Knowles is not grounded in some covert political statement where all the funding is secretly going to this one mission. It's really fellow centered, and it allows you to do a broad range of things wherever you think will impact the greater or even the micro science community, whether it be in your class or further beyond.
Awesome, thank you. And Erica?
Yeah, I'll echo what was said about you can dream really big with the PD money, and PD is professional development money and the materials money, in that it's not like you have to spend it on these 4 things that have been pre-approved. You really can make it as big or as small as you want and very personalized. So an example that I can share is that during our 3rd year, I was talking to some of the other fellows about how we wanted to enhance our own content knowledge and places we'd like to see, specifically as biology teachers, and learn about more. And the Galapagos Islands came up because, as everyone knows, it's a biology teacher's kind of dream bucket list destination. So we actually started looking into whether there was, high quality teacher professional development that existed in the Galapagos. And we figured out the answer was no. So we started asking the question, can we make that professional development? So what we did is we were able to put together a group of about 30 fellows, and we decided to open it up to non-biology teachers as well. So we had chemistry teachers, math teachers, physics teachers, environmental and earth science teachers, and biology teachers, all come together to go on 2 professional development trips to the Galapagos in the summer of 2019. And there were 30 of us who made that journey. All of us Knowles Fellows, all of us wrote PD grants to go there. And our goal was to come out of that experience, not only having our own content knowledge enhanced, but to write some really excellent lessons that were truly multidisciplinary. So not just a biology lesson, but biology and earth science, or not just a physics lesson, but physics and environmental science. That were all grounded in the things and the concepts we had learned in the Galapagos. And not only were we able to produce those really amazing lessons, we also formed a working group, which is called KELP, which we heard about, the Knowles Experiential Learning Project. And we really saw the value of some of these professional development goals, some of these tasks we had designed, some of these ideas we had, and it's continuing to grow beyond that. Sarah and I actually were just at the National Association of Biology Teachers Conference in Atlanta last weekend, presenting some of our work on a national scale. And we have plans to continue that work in the future. So all that being said, that started with one conversation with a few fellows in my third year of the fellowship, and now it has grown into something much, much larger. So basically, it can go as far as you want it to go, is how I would put it.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone else could also attest to ways that they've used their funding to have those same experiences. So our next question, Knowles invests quite a bit to bring fellows together 3 times a year, once in the summer and twice during the school year. How have these meetings furthered your growth as a teacher? Can you talk about a particular meeting highlight? And I'm going to direct this question at Anthony and Destiny. So if Anthony, if you could go first, please.
Sure. So one of the things that Jeff mentioned during the presentation is Knowles looks for teachers who have the propensity to grow in content knowledge and teacher leadership and exemplary teaching practices. And I felt that through these meetings that Knowles has allowed me to be a part of, I've grown in many of those different areas. And specifically, when I think about teacher leadership, I've seen this thread that's gone through multiple years, and particularly at fall meeting, we got a chance to reflect on, hey, what kind of messages have you been hearing about teacher leadership through stories from other teachers, through Knowles itself, and then through your own experiences. And it really gave me an opportunity to look back at this nugget that I'd held on to since my first year in the fellowship. And that was way back in 2017, this idea of leading from within the pack. And I think that I've held on to that for so long. And it's this idea that you don't need to have a leadership position to influence a department, to influence your PLC, your colleagues, and things like that. And it's something that kind of, I felt like gave me the power to see myself as a teacher leader before I was recognized or seen as a teacher leader amongst my colleagues or amongst the staff. And I feel like that really empowered me when I gave that power to, I'm sorry, losing my track of words there. I led to writing a proposal to have a leadership opportunity to lead a book study. And we focused on the 5 practices of facilitating a mathematical discussion in a classroom, and to lead that across my entire math department as my 3rd year in teaching. I felt like that was something that I wouldn't have imagined myself doing or seen myself doing without the development and resources that I had through Knowles. And that's actually turned into something that my colleagues now look forward to, the Read with Read reading group. So I'll play on my last name, as well as reading these books and having our book discussions. And of course, having Knowles fund the books and the food when we have our discussions is a big plus when we get together.
Thank you. And Destiny?
Yes, I really always value the summer conference opportunity where we can be in the same space with the entire Knowles community. So the current teaching fellows, senior fellows, and the program officers. And there are structured activities for us to connect, and then also time for informal activities as well. But a major highlight for me is always that branching out ceremony where the current fellows are becoming senior fellows. And each fellow is highlighted, their experiences and their contributions during the fellowship are shared with the entire community. And so for me, that was always inspiring and motivated me to really make the most out of my time in the fellowship. So a lot of the opportunities that have been shared now, I would learn about those during the branching out ceremony, and that would motivate me to participate and think about ways that I could also work and grow as a teacher leader.
Thank you. Okay. Knowles hires staff who are all experienced teachers to work as coaches, mentors, and PD facilitators for Knowles Fellows. The staff fellows work with have the title of program officers for teacher development, but everyone calls them TDs. Can you tell us about one of your TDs and how they supported or influenced you? John, if you don't mind going first.
Sure. So sorry, just gonna apologize because my attention is divided. My daughter's in the same room, and I'm responsible party at the moment. But in terms of TDs, I've worked. I'm in year 2, so I've so far worked with 3 TDs really closely, and I could talk about any of them because they're all amazing people. I'll talk about the person last year, during remote learning when I had about this amount of time for extra things. And she was really helpful in gently, but encouraging me to actually use my budget and get my first proposal out the door. Because I had a lot of ideas as a year 0 fellow, like before the pandemic started and everything was, beautiful. And I had lots of ideas, but I'd never got them through the process because I would sort of like get something ready and then kind of not follow through. So she sort of sat down with me and said, all right, we're just going to sit down for an hour. We're going to work on this draft. And I should mention I had an English degree too, so like I'm a pretty decent writer. But just the process of going is completely new. Like nobody is good at this when they started. And so she just kind of like held my hand essentially and was like, I know it's good. Like, here's what we need to see. Don't go overboard and don't, expect so much for yourself that the report becomes overwhelming to write. But that process is really essential because everything that we do in terms of getting the funding goes through that same process. And so now that I went through that really hands-on process with one TD, and Laura was just fantastic with kind of doing that and being a human throughout as well. I've now got one that I just submitted yesterday for a leadership grant that I wrote mostly on my own with feedback, but it was the support that she gave me through that first one that has really enabled me to feel confident in writing the next 2 mostly independently. So they really they check in with you every so often, ask how you're doing. I know through the pandemic, a lot of my check-ins were like, I'm just surviving, but they've been both professional and personal supports throughout my first 2 years.
Thank you. Does one more person want to share about the experience with the TD?
I can speak to my current experience as a senior fellow, still working very closely with my TDs, even though I've completed the 5-year fellowship. I'm currently applying for graduate programs, and they're really supporting my application, providing strong letters of recommendation, giving me feedback on my personal statements. So it continues the amazing support you receive, even after you complete the fellowship program.
Thank you. In what ways do you think being a Knowles Fellow has impacted your students? And I'm going to direct this one to Anthony.
Well, one of the first ways that comes to mind when I hear that question, I'm going to share 2, if that's okay. The first way that comes to mind when I hear that is the fellowship allowed me to get an iPad and an Apple Pencil. And at the time, I just saw that as a way to give more direct feedback on student work because my students are one-to-one, they all have iPads. So a lot of their work is submitted digitally. And with my own iPad, I can annotate on that and all these great things. And I included that in my proposal. And I also saw it as an opportunity to make videos so that students can review the content on their own. But at the time, what I did not see coming was a pandemic. So after I got the iPad, it was the perfect timing because when that pandemic hit, everything was digital and I was able to use that iPad as another device when I'm teaching through Zoom. I was able to use that iPad to record the videos that I had intended, but now I was making a lot more because of us being online. And I continue to use that regularly to walk around the classroom and I've just grown to use it and depend on it to help me keep students engaged, to use it in all the ways that I had anticipated in advance, but then in so many new ways just by teaching through the pandemic. And then just overall, I feel the fellowship has made me a more reflective teacher. And I think that it's got me through those first years when it can be tough and when it can be a lot easier to want to throw in the towel, to continue to go to these meetings and see people who are going in that same direction as you, who can keep encouraging you, and just have you get a new perspective on work and kind of refresh you. It's been recharging, and now I can see myself as someone committed to this profession, and as I mentioned before, just as a teacher leader. And I feel overall that's impacted my students, and it's starting to impact students outside of my classroom, which I think is even better.
Thank you. Sarah, do you have anything maybe you could add as well?
Yeah, I think Anthony's examples are really good. Definitely the materials grants are super nice to get like actual classroom materials in the hands of your students. I've purchased a lot of different science kits and different science models. So manipulatives and things that they can like actually touch and feel to help them learn some really complex topics. And those are things that would be outside of my school's like normal budget. So it's really nice to have Knowles there to be able to purchase some of those like actual things. And like I said, kits for different labs as well have been really useful for my students. And then not to just like exactly say what Anthony has said, but yeah, also having Knowles has made me like, I think, a lot better person and a better teacher. It's gotten me through some really hard times. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that I may not be in the classroom if I didn't have the Knowles community supporting me. So simply the fact that I'm there and I feel confident about what I'm doing, and I know that on days when I'm not confident, I have support to back me up and to encourage me. I think that's also been really invaluable from Knowles.
Thank you. In closing, why do you think new teachers should apply for a Knowles Fellowship? I'm going to ask Destiny to answer this first.
Yeah, I would strongly encourage new teachers to apply for the fellowship for that continued professional development. Your school will definitely probably offer you some workshops that you can attend, and you might be able to attend conferences, but there's really no follow-up, and it might be disconnected from year to year, session to session. But in Knowles, it's a very structured program, and it's sustained. And I think in the community in which that takes place is a great benefit.
Awesome. And John, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I would just say, like, what do you have to lose? I mean, it's amazing. Primarily, like, money is great. Everyone loves money, but it's a privilege to be able to be around people who take this as seriously as you do and are not afraid to nerd out about teaching, and will talk to you for an hour about your cool new thing that you are like super excited about, but other people, like your family, are like, okay, yeah, but these are the people who will listen to you, and they'll encourage you and say, that sounds like a book, or whatever that you're working on. And I think so that community aspect, and yeah, there's nothing to lose. There's a question in the chat that maybe is connected to this, which is, do you feel overwhelmed? I think they are pretty good about figuring out how to balance it. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, like, this isn't like you're not in a graduate program, or it's not your primary job. So like, people understand, and there are the kind of like minimum requirements that they'll set out there. But I think there are people who like go full bore and like pour a lot of themselves into this community, and there's other people who do what's expected of them. But I haven't felt overwhelmed. There was a time when I was sick with likely COVID last year for about 6 weeks, and I told them what was going on, and they were like, okay, great, like, do what you can do and focus on your health and becoming better. So That's kind of the impression I've gotten in 2 years of the fellowship.
Thank you. And that was a nice segue. So at this time, we're going to move into the question and answer segment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add them into the chat and we will answer them. And also panelists, if you would like to answer that question about the impact of why people should apply for the fellowship, or even the question that John kind of started answering, which was about, you know, feeling overwhelmed, that would be very helpful as well.
Yeah, I'd love to just respond to that question about it being the work, could it be overwhelming? I think that Knowles is one of those environments that in many ways you get out of it what you put into it. So as John mentioned, there are some people who can, you know, devote a lot more time to their work, to their inquiry, or whatever the aspect of the fellowship may be. And specifically when it comes to like proposals, there are some people who regularly use up all of their funds because that's what they're able to do, or that's what their school needs, or whatever the reasoning may be. And then there are some people who use some of those funds. And right there's just a different level of the work that goes into even writing a proposal for a grant. But also, like John said, the TDs are just so compassionate and thoughtful and understanding and real humans. And I just think about so many times showing up to meetings, whether they were small or large, and they say things like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And that's just such a simple statement that's so supportive. And it's like, whatever you have is enough. You are enough. Just to be here at this meeting is enough. So I think in many ways that times I feel overwhelmed, I remind myself that it's an opt-in type of thing and that there's support that goes along with that.
Sorry, I'm just going to read the question in the chat just to have it out there. Has the fellowship ever made you feel more overwhelmed in terms of additional tasks on top of the several responsibilities of an educator?
I can respond to that as well. I'm feeling this a little bit right now because we had our fellowship conference meeting, and then we had the National Association of Biology Teachers conference meeting. So in the last 2 weeks, I've missed 4 days of school and been on 4 airplanes and done all this kind of like extra stuff on top of my full-time job. And, you know, it's always one of those things like right before I'm going, when I'm making sub plans, I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot, this is extra. But then when I'm there, I never, ever regret it. I always feel really energized, really excited to be in those spaces with other teachers. I have so many new ideas. And contrary to coming back and feeling like, you know, the world is falling on my head, I come back and I feel really excited to be there with my students, even though I have a ton of work to grade and make up and figure out. And my students notice it too. Like when I got back on Monday, they were like, wow, like Ms. Mickes, you seem really excited. Did you have a really good weekend? And so it's like really making a positive impact on my students, even though it's like some extra time or maybe a little bit of what seems like extra stress. On the back end, it's always proved to be kind of like a positive commitment for me.
I would say too that I think Knowles does a really good job of making the work that we do relevant to like actual problems or like relevant to the professional development that you want. So even in the yearly meetings, there is kind of a process or a curriculum or work that you go through as being part of the fellowship. But those things always felt super relevant to me. They were things that I was already thinking about. They were things that I was already curious about that I wasn't sure how to fix. And Knowles just gave me a lot of the like tools and community to identify and like start working towards solutions. So even though you are doing, you know, additional, I wouldn't even call it additional work because it's really work that I was thinking about already. Knowles just gave me the like tools to help understand and work through some of the things that were happening in my classroom.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. As a soon-to-be new teacher, I wasn't even aware of certain things I heard, like donors choose. Are there certain places where you learned about resources for teachers, or are these things you learn along the way by happenstance?
I'll answer that. So I'll say that good old quote
necessity is the mother of invention. So if you're broke, you're going to find money. Like, just you can easily Google, as we just kind of not got booted out. And that's what's beautiful about Knowles, by the way. On top of that 5 years, I think, again, where most other programs die, or you're kind of booted out, so to speak. I just finished writing a grant to draw myself back in and help first year teachers do this very same thing of finding resources. So just another reason to be a part of Knowles is because that community really is forever. It's not even just that 5 years, it's whatever you do want to put into that. But I would definitely say, if you search, you will find it. I happen to also be in the Bay Area, where there's a lot of STEM like resources in terms of either materials or PDs. So just search, just be specific, just like if it was college and they told you with scholarships, just be specific and search. I don't think that there's a specific document that would have all those things. That's the very thing I'm trying to work on making myself right now for teachers. But I think it's just like state dependent, but feel free to always just reach back, starting with like your colleges and seeing what things they have. Again, like Donors Choose, or there are other things out there.
I would say also, oops, sorry, John. I was gonna say also one of the benefits of Knowles is just like having a community, not just of your cohort, but like all the Knowles cohorts to help with that. And sometimes like I'll go into a conference or a meeting, and like somebody will be working on looking exactly what I need, whether it's like a tiny little like website, or whether it's an entire lesson, or whether it's, just like a presentation opportunity, or like I've learned so much just from like small interactions with people in this community. And we also have, an email service. We also have an online messaging service. So if I need help, I can also just post a question on that and immediately have access to, 400 or so teachers in the classroom who can certainly help answer that question for me. So that's another benefit of being part of this community.
I was going to add that finding your people sort of in the wider teacher community, there's quite a few AP chemistry Facebook groups that are really high quality. I know Anthony Tidali was talking about that one, or I'm part of multiple Twitter communities of math teachers. And that's honestly, other than Knowles, those are the places that I find things. Those are the places that I hear about some of the critical conversations happening. What are teachers thinking about? How are they reacting to the wider world? That's my kind of pulse on the wider teacher community. So especially if you're a math teacher and you're not on Twitter, like get on math teacher Twitter. It's a great place.
So I'm gonna give a little pause in case there are other questions coming in.
Oh, sorry. A perfect example is that Anthony was just talking about writing a grant for 5 practices, and I just did that. And so I'm going to literally email him afterwards and ask him about his experience with that.
Yeah, it's like I said, it truly became something that I'm currently reading a book called Choosing to See. And it's about a math equity framework for a classroom. And that is going to be our next book in the Read for Read book club. Last year we read hacking questions, and it's just going to become a thing that we do as a department. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that.
We just got another question. If you pick one content area, are you able to still get support for other areas if you teach them?
Yep. I think most people have probably changed their content at least one time, or have taught several contents based off of their teaching assignment. They might be at like a small school that you have to teach more than one content. And I think support is a very broad range. Like I just transferred to middle school, and Sarah, who's on the call with us too, just gave me something on cell communication because I have the same knowledge as my 7th graders right now on that subject. And I am strictly have been physics for the last 5 years. So support is definitely person to person. Support is also like a Google Drive where I usually kind of like thrift store through every other fellows drives for the same like resources and materials, which is amazing because it's kind of pre-vetted and I trust those teachers. If they've taught it, it's, you know, pretty good. And then TDs are also, again, thought partners. And then if all those things still don't add up, you still have money to have a one-on-one coach and get support through like teaching something new. So I think there's like so many different levels that you can think about when it comes to support, which is really nice.
Yeah, I can speak not for myself, but our other cohort member, Sarah Spector, who has taught now, I think every content area except math. I think she's taught maybe a tiny bit of chemistry, but like she's taught physics, bio, earth science, environmental science, and was able to teach physics. She was teaching physics for the first time last year, was able to do exactly what Bree just said, which is get a coach who was a senior Knowles Fellow to like walk through a whole curriculum because she doesn't have a background in physics. And like that really enhanced her comfort level quite a bit. I think the only limitation would be is like if you all of a sudden like switch from being a science teacher to an English teacher, that might be a bit of a problem. But as long as you're still within mostly for the STEM area, I think that would be fine.
The other thing I'll add about that cross content thing is I'm a math teacher, but I love talking to the physics people. And I had an amazing conversation at dinner with a physicist who's a board member. And we were just like trading notes about all the problems that we introduced for students about because of notation that conflicts between these siloed subjects. So, I mean, I learn a lot from my science colleagues, and it's really valuable to have that multidisciplinary community.
We have a question for Jeff. Are you required to teach biology, chemistry, physics, math? Or if you have a degree in biology and a master's in something like aquatic biology, can you teach both aquatic biology and biology in a high school and still apply for the fellowship and use funding towards those?
The answer is yes. You are, but I realize there's 2 questions there, so I'll be more clear. So you are required to be qualified to teach biology, chemistry, physics, or math. So when you're applying, you're going to be evaluated in one of those 4 content areas. You're not going to be evaluated in aquatic biology, for example. You'll be in bio. That'll be what you're going to be evaluated in throughout our entire process. But we're well aware of how schools work. And once you're a teacher, as the fellows were just describing, you may end up in lots of different science or math subject areas that you're teaching, and you'll get support in all of those, and you're able to use funding in all of those. So it's not a, the requirement is really sort of at its heart that all fellows have deep knowledge within sort of a fundamental science or mathematics discipline, but recognize there's lots of applications of that, and you'll get support in that widely, and you can use any of your funding and support. TDs will assist you with it. You'll find other fellows who are teaching those subject areas and get that kind of support as well. So it's sort of the 4 disciplines is sort of at the entry point. You have to be intending to teach those, but once you're in there, we recognize you're going to be teaching over a wide variety of things.
See if we're getting any more questions. So the last chance before we wind down for tonight. If you have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or use the Q&A feature of the Zoom.
Melissa, I see your question about mastery in the interview. And I actually have a funny story about that, which is that I gave the completely wrong answer in my content interview. It's a little embarrassing now, I guess, to admit, but I think what got me through that was that I was able to like think out loud and process a lot during the interview. And I said, you know, I'm not really certain, but I think it's this, and this is how I think my students would approach this. And, you know, using my expertise, this is kind of what I think it is. And then after the fact, I don't know why also I didn't think I could like Google the phenomena. Like I could have done that. You get some materials, some interview preparation materials that they ask you to go through. And I don't know why I didn't just like do some reading, but you could definitely do that. And also I think what, I don't know for certain because I'm not doing the selecting, but I think what is valued in the Knowles community is an open mind and the ability to like communicate and kind of be wrong and like look for areas of growth. So yes, there are aspects of content mastery in your interview. I got mine wrong and it still worked out okay for me. So yeah, I would just, you can always review some general content stuff, but yeah, I think just being open and being kind of a lifelong learner is really a beneficial thing to showcase in the interview.
I'm also going to just read the question you just answered in case anyone else has another answer. The question was, when you interview, the interview involves content questions to determine mastery. Can anyone give advice for the application and interview? So if we have one more, anyone else wants to jump in and add?
I can add. I would just give the general advice that this is a early career teaching fellowship, and that they are not looking for you to come in and be like, I have figured it all out. Like, because that was certainly not the case, I think, for any of us in our first year when we were pre-service teachers. So again, they're not selecting for perfect teachers. That is not what they're looking for, as far as I understand it. I think they're looking for people who are willing and invested in the growth that is required of teachers. So without getting into too many specifics, I'd say like that's a good mindset to have going in.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have one more question I'm going to direct it towards Jeff. Do you have any advice for someone applying for the second time? I made it to the final group interview last year, but I'm not sure how much my application would change if I were to apply this year as well.
Yeah, my advice would be to apply. It's very common for people to apply twice and to make it the second time when they didn't make it the first time. So I would just recommend, I think that you should apply. And I think you should believe in yourself that you'll be a year smarter, a year wiser, a year more experienced, and that change will be apparent in your application. So certainly I just encourage people to, if you've applied before, certainly don't hesitate to apply again. We've had many fellows who are in that situation who were able to earn the fellowship the second time. So that's my best advice around that. And I would echo also sort of what panelists said to the earlier question of somebody who spends a lot of time in this process of evaluating candidates. Erica's idea that we're looking for people who have potential to develop in all of the criteria is really our target. That's what we're looking for, people with potential, not people who are finished. And if you haven't, Ebony's been posting in there around Knowles teachers knowlesteachers.org/apply. And you can actually get a really better sense of that, I think, by reading our criteria that are on that page. You'll sort of see the sorts of things that we're after in terms of what we look for in new teachers that we think point to their potential to develop strong content knowledge, to be good teachers and be teacher leaders.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So I think we're going to wrap up for the evening. I'm going to just share one last time also the information that Jeff was just talking about. So the website, knowlesteachers.org. You can email apply@knowlesteachers.org. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I want to second what John said about teachers and Twitter. It's a very useful platform. I use it all the time. It's kind of like a great little catch-all if you're trying to get some feedback or get a quick idea. There's always a teacher and they're always on Twitter. So yeah, with that, I want to thank everyone who was able to join us for the evening. And if you have any questions, please reach out, please apply. Please apply again if you applied before. And we really appreciate your time.